3,
2, 1.
Oh boy, this one is going to be a little bit of a wild ride. This is the rise and fall of 90-10 brand. Are you ready to do this?
And
Andy?
so much more.
The rise and fall. The fall. No, not rise and fall. The fall and fall.
And rise.
And then rise. Once again, from the ashes, the phoenix. Maybe not. So where do you want to start this part of the story? Because it's not just like 90-10. It comes out of leaving the mortgage industry in 2014.
Yeah.
The reason I did that, and then it turns into 90-10 brand and all that. So how far back you want to start this one?
Well, I've been praying about this one a lot because
this one's got a lot of stuff. It's going to be a little longer episode.
Okay. Yeah. So this one, I think, starts for me in really, okay, like the 90-10 brand business started in, like the concept started in what year?
Well, I didn't really go public with it until 2014, and then 2015 was the first time I got like a job, like a corporate order to make something.
But you sat with Gary and Chris and were really just kind of going through what is the Lord asking you to build?
Yeah.
In this company, the premise. Talk about the premise. Why 90-10?
So the whole premise of 90-10 brand has a couple components. So one of them was it was impressed upon me while doing the Bible in a year one year. I was doing the Bible in a year one year, and there was this like tug on my heart that like I wanted to, at the end of my life, been able to give back $1 billion towards organizations that were serving people's needs, just as a donor, right? Not because I wanted to be rich and then have enough money. I just wanted to be able to give enough money. I didn't care about having it for myself. I just wanted to give it. And so it was just like impressed upon me to, in order to give $1 billion away, you have to have that. Mm-hmm. And there's, at the time, 15 years ago, 13 years ago, technology wasn't what it was now. Mm-hmm. Online sales wasn't what it was, and marketing and all that wasn't the same. And so in my mind, I was like, well, there's really huge industries such as food, water, clothing, shelter that are like basic human needs. Mm-hmm. And then clothing was one of those, right? And so I figured, well, I'll just start an apparel brand or a clothing line where, kind of like in the Tom Shoes sense, everything you buy has a donation aspect to it. And then accumulating over time, you'd be able to give back $1 billion worth of money towards organizations that serve people's needs. And so I thought the best way to do that matched with my interest at the time, was clothing and apparel, and starting my own brand called 90-10 brand, which is a play on the whole tithing concept of giving your first 10% back, or bringing back your first 10%. And I was like, well, what if a company ran their profit and loss statement and their budget like pay off all your expenses, save money, and then give back 90% of what's left. So basically 90% of your profit. And so that's where the idea of 90-10 brand came from. Mm-hmm. And so I had shared this with Chris Vakowski. I had shared it with Gary Rollins. And at the very beginning, and then we started concepting a couple of things, like how could that look? What would it look like? And then we came up with the actual first 90-10 brand design, which was the words 10 spelled backwards on the word 90. Yeah. And the whole trick was, when you look at the shirt in the mirror, it says the word 10 as that's what you see. And when the public is looking at you, it says 90, which is what they would see. That was the whole gimmick, if you will, of what 90-10 was designed originally to be, and be a brand rather than become a service. And then when orders started coming in and opportunities came in for us to do apparel for other people, that's when it took a backseat to becoming its own thing and having its own life and brandhood, like a Tom Shoes or a Skechers or a, whatever. And then became more of a company that was serving the needs of other apparel people's needs. And then I thought that was the way we'd be able to make billions of dollars and then be able to give it back. And that turned out not to be the case in the end. So the origin is that it was supposed to be his first, be his own thing first.
With my memories that come into play, there are a few different parts of this where, yes, it was, being built, and you started working with other companies. And I think that there were several different lessons that came from the making of it and trying to find footing in it. The biggest thing that in my own prayer life at the time, because you were primarily running the show when it came to the business, and I was a stay-at-home mom for the majority of our relationship. So how that actually came to play, it was like our lanes were completely separate.
They were diverted.
Yeah, very much so. And so where, for me, everything started taking a left turn away from that main narrative, that main goal, in really 16, probably, because you kind of built it to work with other companies, and it was, starting to get when did Tony Gwynn come in, and then GM,
General Motors
come in, and Canelo came in at what point?
2015.
15.
Yep.
But that really started getting some footing to that, to where you were diverted massively into.
And the demands on us became a subset of the agreement to do certain things. And so before I jump into some of that, I want to go back one step to 2014 when I left the mortgage industry.
Oh, this was
fun.
So
I had left the mortgage industry because our family owns a mortgage company, and they have since 2005. I helped Tanya and Memo start this whole thing back in 2005 when we moved from Los Angeles down back to San Diego. And I had taken a sidestep and worked with another business here in town in Mission Valley for a while. And when their son Christian died in 2014, he's the one we hold Christian's big heart for every year. And he died in 2014. I took a step back and I was like, hold on. This mortgage industry is consuming more from our life than contributing to our life. And that was happening at the same kind of time overlap as when I was like, oh, I feel called to do this big thing over here. And so it made it easy for me to walk in and go, hey, I quit. I walked in, and after he passed and after taking a couple of days to reflect on things, I remember being fed up at the place I was at. I was sick and tired of working at that place specifically, but also in the industry at large, and came to the conclusion that this is the time to just fully commit, jump off the cliff into a brand new thing.
Yes.
And go for it.
But there's kind of the way you described it isn't necessarily the way that it fully was, though, because at that time where you and I had been growing pretty diligently on purpose together in our faith and whatever the Lord was calling us to, that was the time where I know, in fact, I think we were going through The Circle Maker by Mark Batterson at the time.
Could have been.
Where we were, which if you have not read that book, do yourself a favor. It really challenges you to push your faith to another level. It's awesome. But so we were really believing that the Lord was giving us this call towards 90-10, and your faith was being stirred. And that was one of the handful of times you've actually been like, I'm going to take a leap. But I remember that day you came home from working in Mission Valley, and you came home and you said, I quit my job. But you had absolute peace about it. There wasn't this, I am tired of doing this. Yes, I knew you didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't that. It was like you were ready to take a leap of faith in a way, honestly, that you had never before.
And I was asked that day, are you sure? And it was even questioned of me, are you going to another company and in a month I'm going to see you pop up somewhere else? It's like, no, I'm done. I'm leaving this entire industry.
Yeah.
I don't want a sales role in mortgage ever again in my life. And no, are you sure? Maybe you just need to take a couple more days off. I was like, no, I am telling you right now, I'm not even going to renew my license.
Yeah.
I was so adamant about it.
I think for the reality of what our life was, it wasn't just based off of I'm tired. It was based off of this drive in faith that you were really going in towards. And I was really proud of you when you came home and said that to me, because as scary as that could have been, or possibly even should have been, because the mortgage industry, you can make some pretty decent money, and not having a job myself, being, not bringing any money in myself, having you just say, I quit and we're going to start a business from scratch. That could have been such a different response, but it wasn't. I had absolute peace. I was so proud of you for stepping in that and being obedient to what the Lord was telling you to do. As a wife, that is probably one of my favorite days, being married to you. So
Well, so 9010 brand kind of got its origin with me quitting something else and out of like a tragic family loss part of that. And then also that weaving in at the same kind of intersection of time window of life where I felt compelled and drawn into, hey, go do this thing and we win behind the sales kind of situation. And I just started using my contacts and talking to people about it. And in 2015, we got our first real opportunity, and that was with the San Diego Rescue Mission.
Oh, yeah.
And that was actually the first job I did for and with someone else, where we did a design feature for the Sleepless San Diego event, where they had people from the community come and sleep outside under the stars and kind of experience what it's like to be on the street firsthand, as an effort for the San Diego Rescue Mission to help kind of expose more of what's happening in San Diego, but also give people a pseudo example of what it's like to sleep, on cardboard and with a blanket and a pillow outside. And at the time this was done at Liberty Station. It was all secure and whatever, but it was just this idea of like, you need to come and sleep under the stars. So that was our first job. And actually it was Christian Castaneda that was actually volunteering with the San Diego Rescue Mission at the time, helping them back at that time, who had created that opportunity for us. Then from that came other things. And I remember the first like celebrity client we had was when we got called into doing the LaDainian Tomlinson 5K. That was cool and fun because like, hey, I'm a Chargers fan. It's 2015, and he had his awesome football career here, and that drew me in because of the San Diego Rescue Mission, and other people connected there. They were like, oh, we also do this, we also do that. Can you help us here? And so that kind of opened the door for me to do that, all the shirts for the LaDainian Tomlinson 5K. And then that actually, I don't know if you remember this or not, we got to go to another celebrity golf tournament because of that. And that's where I got to meet Jerry Rice.
Yes, I
and
do
we
remember
sat
that.
like with all these other like NFL players. I was like, how are we here right now? This is amazing. And, I grew up watching Jerry Rice and getting to take a picture with him and see all these other football players. It was really cool. I think it was the Stan Humphries Classic. He used to have he used to have a golf tournament here. And I think the group that did the 5K was also doing that, and we were invited to go to that and just be a part of it because we were like a community contributor.
Yeah.
And so anyways, that kind of kicked off some of the celebrity-ish stuff, athletic stuff, that then brought us into ultimately getting other big accounts that really were the rise of it publicly, and then also then became the fall of that.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the biggest ones was when you started doing work with Canelo Álvarez. That was when I really started seeing the shift. Excuse me. When I started seeing the shift from, okay, he's building it to become something it pays the bills, it does the job that it needs to in order to just be a functioning company, so that we can actually get to the point where 9010 brand gets to function fully in what its purpose was. Then I saw Canelo happen. And in my experience, Andy got to experience the actual creation of the brand, the apparel, the hats, the shirts, the whatever. Go out to Vegas and go to the
clothing convention, the sell to retail.
Yeah, and there were a lot of things that came out of that I started seeing red flag after red flag after red flag, and I know in my prayer time at the time, there were several partnerships that happened that the Lord said, no, don't do that. Nope, don't become a business partner with that person. Nope, don't become, Canelo's asking for this or that or the other, or, and not to shame anybody or, they were just doing business in their to meet their own needs and conducting. Yeah. But for what we were supposed to say yes to and no to, the Lord was giving me these red flags of, don't partner there. Don't say yes to that. But in the warning flags going up, the wife, the helpmate is saying, hey, I'm getting this word. And the businessman is going, oh, no, but these are pretty lucrative opportunities. And I need to say yes to these things because, it's going to just get momentum in the directions that we really want this to go. And
I saw them as connected to the outcome. And I did not see that the things you were seeing were going to prevent the outcome. So it was seeing the same thing, but you're seeing it as, oh, this is a threat. And I was thinking, no, it's actually going to open up this other thing. And it didn't.
Right.
But it was the different perspective did not work.
Well, and so again, when you're going into, especially when you are a family of faith and you have the Lord at your center and you are deciding that whatever he says, if this is a mission that God has given us to tackle, then that means he doesn't say, here's your mission, go ahead, leave me out of it, take all the giftings I placed within you and just go do it yourself. He says, I'm the CEO of the company. You need to check in with me and make sure that you're still saying yes and no to the right people. And when you do so, you're going to trust me and have faith that I'm going to make sure that your family is provided for, the business is provided for, the mission is provided for, because your faith is intact and your trust in me is intact. And where I had my knees to the floor, my ears open to the Lord, you had your eyes set on the dollar sign. And I would say, now here's what I would say to, from the wife's perspective and the helpmate position, if you are given a helpmate, they have a level of discernment that is for you. It is not to nag you. It is for you. And if you are, and now on this side of it, years later, we have been able to come into these conversations where it's, hey, I'm really hearing the Lord say this. There's a different heed to that warning now, but in the middle of that was something that was completely disregarded to the point where I, as your wife, was feeling very, what's the word?
Outcast, pushed away.
Yeah.
And disregarded.
Yeah, very much so. To the point where it got us to, so Canelo is where I look at things. And again, I'm going to bring TMI in on this because for me, when I started seeing, so our daughters would go to the warehouse. We had a warehouse in.
We were sharing space with another brand here in town that had their own warehouse. Mm-hmm. And in the back, there was adequate space and shelving for us to hold all the inventory, because what started out as create an order for us to ship to Vegas, that worked. And then what it turned into, well, what if we do online sales? And then, let's build the online website. Let's take the photos and the videos. Let's do the marketing component.
Which became a monster in its own.
Right. So then it kind of created its own life and it became bigger than everything else. So on one hand, it like squashed other things that we were going to work on. And then it created other opportunities that we could have and did say yes to, because instantaneously people trust that you can do whatever they're going to ask you to. When you're doing it for the biggest player in the boxing game at the time. Sorry, I'm going to start arguments in the comments. This is at the time when like Floyd Mayweather was kind of, looking at the sunset and, he was sunsetting, and Pacquiao was sunsetting, and Canelo was like kind of on the rise. Yeah. And he wanted to start an apparel brand. And so for fight after fight after fight, we were the people who took it from scratch into the market, into retail, and then managing the online store and our physical space. And I have pictures of all this stuff. We had thousands and thousands of pieces of inventory on all these racks and shelves, sorted by style, color, and size. And every day we were picking and packing. And then we had to staff up for that. And so we kind of forced ourselves into scale, but not in a good way. And then also the other part, though, is that because we didn't manage the brand, we were on the service side of the brand, other things connected to the brand were outside of our standard, or I'll say our philosophy. And that then became a clash of, I don't know how, privately, I don't know how long we can do it like this, because boxing brings along ring girls and imagery. I'm bringing it up because it brings up all this stuff where you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is not in alignment with who we're trying to be in the business place, but it is connected to what the client does. But how do we say this, but then do that? It was incongruent.
Yes.
And that became a big problem.
It was a big problem. And I remember walking in. So our daughters would go to the warehouse. Actually, it was a lot. We were there.
A lot, helping out and checking in and coming, bringing lunch or dinner. We had some crazy nights.
There were really crazy nights, but it came to the point where they're folding and they're packing and they're doing the things. And to their memories, it was actually one of those things that they look back on and go, oh my gosh, that was actually fun.
That's where Boy Band Tuesday came in, by the way. Park that for later. I'm going to come back to that. That's a funny story. I want to tell it. Go ahead.
So, and when you say we had to staff to meet the demand, we didn't staff to meet the demand. We borrowed people's time we had people, hey dude, come in and help us pack because we've got this huge order and I'll buy you dinner.
Yes, but
whatever.
we brought on Sean, we brought on Jason, we brought on Sam.
Mid on half, there were people that were staffed.
Oh yeah.
And then there were people that were actually
fed.
And these kids would come in and I'm like, oh my God, we're pulling from, the youth from church.
Wait, no, hold on. It wasn't just that. It was Austin was down at Starbucks one night.
Yeah.
This is an Austin Robinson story.
Austin.
So I want to come back to this. I have to tell us really quickly. So I'm down at Starbucks because we're going to have a late night. I need to go get coffee for everybody. So I go down to Starbucks. Our friend Austin, who used to be in our youth music program, was working at Starbucks. I'm like, hey, what are you doing after work? And he goes, oh, well, me and so-and-so and so-and-so, we're going to go hang out and have some beers. And I was like, I'll go buy Bevmo and get that for you if you come by the warehouse and fold shirts with me for 3 hours. And he did. He closed his shift at Starbucks like at 11. And he came over and we worked till like 2 a.m. and they helped us fold shirts for a last minute order because we had several going on at the time that were going to different places for different large scale events. And yes, that was the we'll feed you part of the staffing issue. But go back to the girls coming to the warehouse.
Anyway, so the girls would come to the warehouse with me and we'd help for a little while. They'd be doing homework in the back from, after school and then getting some shirts done. And I kept looking around going, uh-oh, what did we create? What did you create?
Yeah.
And what did I, allow to get so far out of hand because I didn't hold you to your agreement. And I tried really hard. That was its own season of we did not see eye to eye on what was supposed to be happening. And in that same time, going back to the Ring Girls, I walked into the warehouse with our daughters. And I look in and there's these Ring Girls dressed in Canelo attire. And no kidding, my heart was devastated. Because not only did I walk in and I see something that was not in alignment with what we started, my daughters were witnessing that.
And we were not in control of it.
And
we were, and then, sorry, that probably sounds like I'm like, oh, no, wait. We didn't set it up. We didn't set it up. We had all the stuff there. So they ended up doing the shoot there because we had set up an area for taking content for the product.
Right.
Not people, let's say, flaunting the product. And so this is again one of those chasms where it's like we were involved, but we weren't involved in some other things, and that started becoming clash points. And this is one of them.
And I also, to be careful and to be fair to the sport, because quite honestly, with certain sports comes, you know what you're going to get. The Ring Girls are a part of boxing. They're a part of, that version of entertainment. And okay, cool. If that's what you enjoy watching, cool. Enjoy that. But what we created this business for, it didn't align with our core desires and beliefs and values. And that's not to knock anybody or their involvement in what they were trying to pursue as a business themselves. That's not the intent behind this.
Yeah, we were coming from more of the modesty perspective.
Sure.
And having daughters be modesty, then the opposite of modesty is revealing, and then that being connected to the brand that we were the one making all the stuff for.
Right. And I think for me as your wife, it was quite an argument that came out of that day, because I knew you had absolutely lost control of what was started out to be something for the Lord and for giving back. It turned into for the dollar and how much you can get out of it. And our daughters were witnessing this entire thing unfold. And as your wife walking into that type of display, and when you said to me, I didn't organize this, I didn't have control over this, to me that said, you still have to own that. Mm-hmm. You said yes to this space being used. You didn't put boundaries up. You didn't guard your family. You didn't guard the business. And in all of those things, it was absolutely true. That wasn't accusatory. That was absolutely what it was. And that season, in that time was what, 15, 16, you said?
That was in 2016, yeah.
16. Okay, so when 16 started hitting,
That's when we were at that other building, yeah.
that was the pinnacle of
That was the height of
of 9010
everything.
brand. And then it started really taking a downfall into 17, and 17 was literally where I know for me, and this might be a controversial prayer, but for me, I knew the Lord was asking me to pray it. Let me backtrack a little bit. When you created the whole atmosphere of 9010 at the same time of taking on these big, brands, one of the coolest things I saw happening was you opening up this artistic platform for young artists, creators to come in and literally just have way of the space.
Yeah.
You're a photographer. Come practice your art by taking pictures for whatever we're doing, for whatever brand we're working for. If you are a graphic designer, if you are whatever the role you were in, that there was a whole upper room in this space that we had that was just tables of artists doing their craft, and they would go along on
like a loft.
On the shoots, drone flyers and photographers and graphic designers and you name it. These kids had free, and I think that was one of the coolest things you could have done, is to open up a learning opportunity while still, and they were interns, but they were still given free way.
Access and free reign to make what they want. But can we use this as a teaching moment to people who might want or looking for this?
Yeah.
So there's two sides of this. Number one, on the young creator side, it's hard to have credibility or get chosen when you don't have a lot of portfolio work to show. And on the producer side, I had a lot of things that needed to have photos taken, videos, website stores made, drone, whatever, and back office experience that we needed help with. And so I created an internship program where we would allow access to people in creative spaces and to do their thing that matched with what our demand and needs were internally. And then they got to have access to things they wouldn't have normally. And then we got things we needed to produce on behalf of the clients with the client's permission.
Right.
And then the client got to decide if they use or don't use the stuff made by the creators. And then the creators got to decide how much or how little they wanted to participate, how deep they wanted to dive, whatever. And we had several people that from there went on to go and pursue that as a career, doing that thing. I'll say Aldrin was one of those. And our little partnership we had with Rich Minnow and Minnow Pro Media. Brian Chan, who most of you know Chan. If you know Chan in my life, Brian, it's not even his name. It's Kalalung. But we called him Chan because he used to call me Andy Chan. So I just called him Chan. And now Brian, I've hired him for years to do shooting for me for this company. Johnny was already a graphic artist, but now Johnny is in full force creative mode on his own. So there's all these trace markers, and Johnny wasn't an intern. He was one of our staff members. Right. But, even Ann, remember Ann?
I do.
Like Ann got a launch pad into what she's doing. And remember, and Chris. So Chris, he actually went and shot a bunch of stuff for like National Geographic. Like he hit the planet with his like red camera that I can't even afford, and like went out and like created this whole life of doing capturing. Yeah. But he started there. And so there's all these cool instances where, because we were able to get the client's approval to let them do this thing, and they got to control and decide what they wanted to keep and not, then these young adults got to come in and try stuff and have free space to excel and be good at what they were, because I'm not good at all those things. Yeah. And that was a really cool season.
That was cool. But that was happening at the same time that we saw everything start heading downhill. It was a beautiful thing with learning how to do relationship and with all of these kids at the time, and raising our daughters in it, and having movie nights upstairs. Like there were a lot of really cool things.
Oh my gosh, that's right. We did movie night at the office. I forgot about that. And, oh my gosh, that's right.
So there were a lot of really cool things that we did that were fun, and the girls remember, and they looked fondly back on that season. But when you're going from 16 into 17, I'm going to go back into the things that the Lord was saying, hey, you're way off the mark. And I remember I was sitting in prayer time one day, and the Lord gave me a prayer. He said, wreck him. Wreck him in every area that he is not in order with me. That's your prayer. So I prayed it. Jesus, take everything from him that does not align with you. And I didn't know how hard that was going to hit, but I knew it was a really, really big prayer. And shortly after I prayed that prayer, everything started falling apart. Everything. So fast forward to November of 2017.
Wait,
Did you wanna hit something
before we
else?
get there, yeah. So part of that falling apart was key relationships that we had on the back end that were unable to fulfill what we were asking still. And even to the degree that key influencers we had in social media space, their orders were unknowingly to me connected to somebody who was stealing goods from us.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And not only stolen,
Things we blocked.
but taken in good faith and said, oh, we're going to go and make this YouTube influencer stuff for you. And we'd already done tens of thousands of dollars of ordering with this person and took about $10,000 worth of raw goods across the border to a place that he owed money to.
Right.
And then they basically held it hostage against him until he paid them, even though I had already given him the goods and given him cash up front to go and finish it all. And then I had to beg, plead, and threaten to get it all back. And then I got it back unfinished and then had to go take it to that
Another
person, tail tucked between legs and like embarrassed and upset and completely left abandoned by this other person, all while actually giving explanation to this influencer. The only thing he's hearing out of me is excuses.
Right.
And I'm retelling him the story of what happened, but it's just excuses coming out of Andy's mouth.
Yep.
Now, the reason I said it that way is because there's the alternative, which is the hardest day in my experience at 9010 brand was when I had to return all of the diamond gear and Gwyn baseball stuff to their house. And that came after November. So let's talk about November 1st, November 2017.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about the hardest day ever of 9010 brand.
So November, Andy came down with strep throat. And I said, hey, you should go to the doctor and take care of that. It's strep. I know it's strep. And he, no, I'm fine. Well, he ends up going to work anyways and has a fever. He's laid out on the couch. Well,
there's a video of me on the couch. I hope I can find it.
But he nicks his knee on a screw underneath the desk that was holding like
the power strip.
Yeah, the power strip.
Well, the power strip had fallen off, but the screw is still there.
Yeah.
And I scratched my knee on it.
Yes. So he scratches his knee on it. It doesn't bleed. It just sticks his leg and closes back up. And because there was no washing out and bleeding.
There's no wound.
He had strep in his system already. And that wound got infected within a day.
Yeah.
It was
within
the
1 day and then the day after
that you went in.
I don't know the exact dates it was.
I think
but
it was the 20th you nicked your knee. The 21st you started getting an infection, and you called me from the car saying, I'm going to urgent care.
Yeah. This
thing is blowing up, and it's so excruciating.
So Aldrin and I were actually on a delivery, and I was driving the Mini, and it was stick shift. And my left leg was hurting so bad I could barely shift. So I drove myself to the hospital. And then I don't know if Aldrin took the car from there or I don't remember what happened after that.
I met you there.
I went to the hospital and went to the ER. And at that point, like my knee was itchy and it was like red around this. This was probably at this point, maybe around 48 hours later. I don't know if it was exact or not, but
probably.
Yeah. And it's just, I wasn't feeling good. And I was like, oh, this itches and it starts itchy and it's hot. So totally signs of infection. And they gave me antibiotics.
Yeah.
And like, go home. It's okay. Just take antibiotics. You'll be fine.
They said within 24 to 48 hours, you will start seeing a difference. Well, 24 hours in and you are completely laid out on the couch. Your leg is starting to spread. So around his knee, it was like you have this small circle of red and then all of a sudden it starts getting bigger. And I'm going, oh, that's not good.
And we missed Thanksgiving at Nana's house.
We did.
I think that was a Thursday.
We did. We got, in fact, I went to you wanted L&L barbecue. And so I went to, and the kids wanted McDonald's. So I went to go pick up dinner, and I have pictures. We'll find these things and put them up. He'll put them up. Anyways, so I go out and I get him, and he's laid on the couch. My friend of mine came over and was like, that's not supposed to happen. Like, I've gone through several different bouts of infection. This is not good.
Yeah.
You need to take him back in.
Yeah.
So that night, it was Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
We stayed home and got fast food for dinner. And honestly, it was such a surreal thing because at the time I knew Andy had strep, hadn't gotten treated. And I'm like, listen, this is something that the kids are, well, all of a sudden, Jillian, our second daughter, she starts coming down with a scratchy throat. And I'm going, no, I don't need this right now. And Kate started getting a little scratchy. I started getting a little scratchy. And so at the same time, the very next day, so it was a Friday then, I took you back to the ER and you were
I was in excruciating pain.
Like the redness on his knee spread to about here now, and it was crazy swollen.
Yeah, so and my knee started getting swollen to the point where like you can't bend it. Like if you've ever jammed your finger and you're like, oh, my finger, it's hard to bend. Like my leg was doing that where I couldn't bend my knee. I could bend a little bit because it still even got worse than that. So by the time we had gone to the hospital, I could move my knee just a little bit, but not fully.
Yeah, well, so I take him and I take Jillian with me. And we go to the ER and I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm going to need antibiotics for me and the kids. And my husband is in another bed. So I have Jill in one bed down in the back of the ER. And then like 4 or 5 spaces down, there's my husband. And then I'm looking at the doctor and I said, listen, I've got 3 daughters. The symptoms are already showing. And he goes, you're going to have to bring them each individually in. And I said, Doc, my husband's down in another bed, like 4 or 5 down. I'm the only one home to take care of these kids. I don't have anybody else to take us individually and do this 3 more times. I know I feel it. She's got it. I've got 2 other kids. I don't have it in me. He was such a godsend. And I don't know his name. I can't remember his face, but I knew that was such a gift from the Lord to me specifically. Whew, that makes me want to cry. Thank you, Jesus. That in that moment, what a blessing he was to me personally, where he said, I'm going to give you 4 prescriptions. Put them in if you need them. And don't worry about bringing the other 2 in. But Jillian had tested positive for strep, which meant that the other, me and the other girls likely had it. So I just filled the prescriptions and I gave the antibiotics to the kids, and thank you, Lord. It was such a gift. Well, you were admitted that night, and that was such, it's amazing how many years. Sorry. It's been some time. And what's funny is, like, even leading up to this season, talking about this season, I have done a ton of praying, because normally sitting and talking about this, I'm okay. Like, it doesn't hurt still to talk about it, because you and I have gone through such a processing over the years to work through all of the things that we had to deal with and heal through. I didn't recognize how alone I felt in that season, while at the same time, how so very present the Lord was for me specifically, when I don't think our families knew the severity level of what was happening. So it wasn't like they knew how much I needed a different level of support. And that's not on anybody else. I think I was just to myself about it, that I didn't really, and I don't know that I knew the severity level.
So there's I think 3 things happening at once, which in the beginning, like, okay, cool, he's admitted, he's under good care. This certainly isn't going to get worse. That was kind of part 1. Part 2 is you were like in crisis mode. I got all these sick kids, my husband in the hospital. What do I need to do? Like, what's right in front of me? And then there's the tough as nails part, where because you had always operated so independently and so I'll say tough, there was not this assumption, oh, Jenn needs our emotional support or Jenn needs our actual support.
Who knows?
And I'm speaking for everyone else, but I'm just saying that you don't tend to need to rely on people to do normal stuff. And even in situations where things might be hard, the assumption is not, oh, she's absolutely going to need my help. And so I think that was just a layer of it.
Yeah, and I think because of the timing
Basically,
of it all.
Tough.
Well, some of that was just because I became self-reliant because of different seasons of you battling through workaholism and that you were not home very much, that I just kind of carried on the way I always carried on. And that had become our life.
Like recalibrated your capacity and
like I think I was just so used to the workaholism that because you weren't there and you were in the hospital, you weren't typically in my days anyways. You would come home at night and have dinner late with the kids and then send them to bed and that was it.
And they went to came home late and they went to bed early. So it was like this weird.
So I didn't feel like I needed anything because I'd gotten so used to what it was, but all that to say is at the same time you were in the hospital, we lived with his parents at the time. We lived with his parents for 9 years.
But this is after having lost our home that we did the cash for keys for that we talked about in one of our previous episodes.
And that was, so we had already lived with them at this point. So this was 2017. So we had been with them for 6 years at this point. So we'd all gotten used to, that whole season of what it was. It was, we had like our own.
A flow to the house.
There was our own flow. Well, Mom and Dad had made a trip they had planned a trip to Reno to go see Allison. Andy's sister and her family. And I just thought, okay, well, I have to have it. Like, I'm in it. And they're not going to be here, so I have to deal. Well, the kids were in school, so my days were spent at the hospital.
Yeah, not because when they weren't sick, they were at school, yeah.
Well, yeah, and they barely got anything because, they barely got any of that because, again, the doctor gave me the antibiotics and it was Thanksgiving weekend. So they had antibiotics in their system before they had to go back to school, and they were fine by the time they had to go back to school. So the timing weirdly worked out for me I would go take them to school in the morning, go to the hospital right afterwards, take care of whatever you needed, whether you needed a shower or whatever, I would just do it. Go pick them up from school, bring them back from school to see you at the hospital, then bring them home we would have dinner with you sometimes, depending on how you felt, which most of the time was awful. And then I would take them back home, shower them, get them ready. And then by this time, Mom and Dad were home and I would put the kids to bed. Grandma and Grandpa would be home and I would go back to the hospital until it was time to close out. And I would,
So understand that this, what she's describing, this calendar, not agenda, this like calendar and routine, I was hospitalized for 12 days total. So it wasn't just, this happened for 2 days. No, this was for almost 2 weeks. And it kind of became that because of the school schedule. So it's like, I have to be here at this time and I have to be there at that time. When you weren't, you were doing other errands or helping me because you're like trying to uphold everything at the same time. And in the hospital, I am having bouts of extreme pain and then being like so medicated that I can't feel it at all. And my leg completely making its best attempt to like totally kill me. And the infection had grown. So in the first couple of days of being hospitalized, the goal was we need to slow this down and stop it because it kept going further down my leg and then also up my leg. So at its like totality, when it finally got, I'll say, under control, was when it had reached my foot and all the way to the top of my like hip, basically like my butt, but on the side. So like my hip. And that's after trying numerous medications and letting that cycle for 24 hours or 48 hours. And I just remember being stuck so many times in my arms, in my hands, on both sides of my arms. I stopped counting after 40. And I remember that because I felt so emotionally defeated. And I'm like, why isn't this happening faster? Not out of a place of impatience, out of a place of like, this is actually really bad. And I don't think I think I was too drugged up to understand how bad it was, but you can see how bad it was. And then when they start talking about how we need to make sure we can stop this so like we can like save your leg kind of stuff, you're like, oh shoot, that's what's going on the inside of my body. Like that was like a wake up call.
Yeah.
And so then we were seeing each other in between me being talked to by doctors, maybe remembering it, maybe not, writing notes down.
Recording them, yeah.
Yeah, recording stuff, and then you coming in and me seeing the girls, then days I don't see the girls. It was crazy.
It was crazy, but again, going back to the fact that like I knew what I prayed. I didn't pray for you to get sick, but God knew it was going to happen. And in the middle of it all, I weirdly had this crazy supernatural peace that I was fine. I had joy. I was able to function healthily with the girls. People would come in and they would lay hands and, pray. It was, there were so many beautiful things that were happening amongst this situation. And I remember the doctors coming in one time, a couple times, but the infectious disease doctor came in and they're like, ma'am, because, we're asking like, what's really going on? How bad is he? And they're not going to tell me straight up because, they didn't know. They didn't know how to get a handle on it. They couldn't get the right cocktail in order for your body to respond to. I remember a doctor looking at me and he said, ma'am, your husband is really sick. And I just said, huh. All right. Well, Lord, you told me that everything that we were going to go through together was going to be for the healing of our family. I'm standing on that. By faith, I'm standing on that. You are not a man that you should lie. So you're going to bring him through this because you showed me through different visions and, things I'm not telling you. I'm also praying this whole time and journaling this whole time and listening to the Lord. And the Lord was so encouraging to my soul in this time that I had absolute peace that you were going to be just fine. But when doctors are saying that, I'm going, all right, I see the severity level. But one of the coolest moments was I was on worship team and I was working for East Lake Church at the time as a worship leader at the Torrey Pines campus. And one of our friends on worship team, I didn't know this at the time actually, was like a microbiologist for UCSD for like 22 years. And he says, Jen, we've been praying with you. And I just want to tell you from my position. And he told me what he did. And he goes, I've seen less infection take life and limb. Your husband is experiencing a miracle. And I just felt Holy Spirit rush through me in a way that was so beautiful and even more peaceful. And I thanked him, I hugged him, and I walked into worship rehearsal. And I had just joy and I had peace. And I knew God had you in his hands and I didn't have any worry. So it makes me teary-eyed for just the point that God had us the entire time. And it got really, really bad in the natural, but I knew in my spirit it was good.
Well, at that same time, I don't know what day in the sequence of days that thing had happened.
Would have been a Thursday night.
Well, it would have been a Thursday night, yes. I just don't know if it was on week 1 or week 2.
Yeah.
But in the first couple of days when they were trying to get the pain under control, like I remember, I don't remember recording myself until I was like, hey, there's all these videos in my phone of me like in excruciating pain. And I'm essentially like, and I remember now in my head, I'm like, I just want to die.
Yeah.
Like, and not because I didn't want to be with you or the girls. I just remember this pain is way beyond what I think is worth staying around for.
Sure.
And I was in such heart pain because of my physical pain that I was willing to like just close my eyes and that be it. And that's weird to say now, kind of on the opposite end of that experience, but I remember that. I don't think I remember recording that, but I did, because it's in my photo roll. But that's what was happening in that moment where I'm in excruciating pain. It won't go away. What they're doing for me isn't working. My leg feels like it's on absolute fire. It felt like someone was taking those like blow torches, like you use in like a kitchen, like a commercial chef would use to make like creme brulee or something, but like just over my leg, just up and down my leg. It just felt like I was being burned.
Yeah, it
but
looked
from
like,
the inside out. And
Yeah.
I just was like, this is it. I don't want to do this.
I mean, you guys, his leg looked like a hot dog that's been on the grill too long, and the skin pops open
Right
like,
before it.
right before it bursts. It was so gross. And you look at it and it's hot. It was just awful. The poor guy.
But one of the other things that was so sad to me, there was two moments that I think really stood out to me. And again, everyone was doing their best to try to help me, but some of the things didn't work. And one of them was when we switched medications and I had an allergic reaction to it.
Yeah.
And my entire body broke out in like these hives that I want to itch, but I'm also in pain.
Yeah.
And like my entire body was covered in this. And that was so defeating to me because I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like a step backwards. And then the other one was because I had to be wheelchaired around and I couldn't put weight on my leg. They put a fall risk bracelet on my wrist. And I remember crying because I was like, oh, this is going worse than we're not getting better. We're getting worse. They're now saying I'm a fall risk. I can't stand. I have to call for help every time I want to get up and go to the bathroom, even though that's excruciating. And I just felt so defeated in both those times, or both those instances, because they were indicators to me that this is not getting better. It's actually beating me, and it's winning in this fight to keep me alive or not.
Sure. Well, then, you go a little bit further, and you're sitting there. I remember and I'm not going to say this prayer. The Lord had spoken something to me in October. It was right before all of this happened. And Andy was in bed one of the nights and shared this with me later. And he was praying, Lord, give my wife what she wants. Heal me and give my wife what you promised her. And in that, you were telling him you would do what he asks you, whatever he asks you to do. Right? I know you were drugged up, but so there's some of that memory, but you said, heal me and give my wife the promise that she wants, and I will serve you how you ask. And I believe it was that night that you felt Holy Spirit wind rush over you, and you were able to walk that night.
So I had not been able to walk so I was hospitalized for 12 days. I had not been able to walk for 11 of those days. And on that night, I sat up in my bed. I could not go to sleep, and I was listening to messages. I was trying to just get some inspiration, some motivation, some encouragement, an infusion of faith, if you will, because I was being infused with all sorts of other stuff. And we had come on the other side of the hill of getting the medication under control. The hives had like gone down. They got the swelling under control, and my leg was like the infection was retreating back to where its origin was. And I still was not able to put any weight on my leg without excruciating pain. And I sat up in bed, and I sat at the foot of my bed on the right-hand side, and I said that, and I prayed that. And if you've ever been into a restroom where you wash your hands and then you dry them in the Dyson dryer, the blade, I felt like that went around my whole body. It felt like my whole body was encapsulated by this blade of wind up and down, and I was like, whoa, weird. And I like moved the tray aside. This is like at 1 a.m, I think, or 2 a.m. And I was like, whoa, weird. And I stood up and I was like, there's no pain in my leg. And then I was like, hold on a second. So I walked into the room, and I went from one side to the other and back again. And I was like, I haven't done this in nearly 2 weeks. 10 seconds ago, I had excruciating pain in my leg still because it's retreating back to its origin of where the infection started. And I felt this breeze go over my body, and now I'm walking without pain. This is crazy. And the next day, the doctor came in. I tell this story, and he's like, what do you mean? Like, this is the doctor been overlooking my care for the whole time. He's like, what do you mean you started walking last night? And I tell the story, I sat in my bed, I prayed, this, that. And he's like, show me. I got out of bed, and I just started walking. And I'm like, look, like you'd see me walking right now on social media or in person. I'm just walking around like normal. He's like, what? He's like, this just happened because he's in disbelief, because I was in disbelief too, because it just happened, right? I shouldn't say it just happened, but like that, like delivery was given. And And he's like, there's no way. He goes, we still gotta do all these other things or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, that morning happened, and then like the next day, I was able to go home.
Right.
I jumped to the end there, but what you didn't experience is when I had that initial conversation, I knew you were coming to the hospital later, and so I went waiting for you. And like with my little walker, like my old man walker, and you came off the elevator, and I was able to like show you, hey, look, I tossed it aside, like I can walk.
Yeah.
And like that was kind of surreal too, because I was like, I want to capture this moment because like death came knocking at the door. I'm out of this bed. I can walk today. I'm gonna walk to greet my wife.
Yeah, and that was a beautiful thing because I was allowed to participate in the miracle, and it was a miracle. Everything that had been leading up until then was so out of control physically that within an instant it was shifted, and it was such a gift to be able to witness you walk to the elevator. And one of the things I want to say as well was in every season of just the craziest of valleys, the Lord has blessed us with amazing community. And not just, yes, there was a lot of this that I was very alone in it because of just whatever the circumstances were. I kind of was forced into that. But with the visitors that would come to the hospital and come pray and bring food and whatever, one of the sweetest moments was when Kevin and Patrice McPeak, Claire, our youngest, her birthday, was it her 7th or her 8th?
So 2017,
she was born in 9.
It would have been her 8th.
Okay, so her 8th birthday, she celebrated in the hospital. And that, not only, I remember that was something that was hard for you because that was a big bummer. Our kid had to celebrate in the hospital. But Kevin and Patrice were so sweet, and they brought her flowers, not you. And
Kevin made sure I knew that too.
Kevin
These aren't for you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
And it was such a kind, beautiful thing. But that was just one of many examples that by these visitors, they weren't just in it for you and I, they were in it for our kids. And our family, we have a picture of our, like, all the cousins and the parents and the siblings coming together and being crowded in that room. And the doctors and nurses just kind of turned the other way and let us pile in that room and
hey, how do those people get in there?
Visit and pray and God was just in it. Like he was just in it.
Your cousin Jenna had come by several times because she was working at the hospital and on her shift she'd make sure to come by and just come by the room and check in, and that was that was really considerate as well. Yeah. And then some of my bozo friends would come by and joke around, try to make me feel better, brought me a teddy bear.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Those things were such sweet God kisses in the middle of what was a hard thing. And I love that, fast forward even again, and we'll go into this another time, but walking through cancer, walking through, just other really tough seasons of our life, God has always given us a beautiful community of people who have not just prayed alongside us, but who have fed our home and made sure that we were taken care of in ways that we couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
And just in that season alone, it was just such a beautiful gift. If I couldn't be there, somebody else was.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that. So everybody who came by to see Andy and participate in prayer over him and his health, that was something that absolutely could have taken him out. And by the grace of God and by the power of prayer, I know your involvement in that and our family and wherever they could come in. And when I needed them to take the kids, when you would have to go to physical therapy or whatever, our parents would step in where we needed it.
Yeah.
There was that, I say brief, 12 days because it was brief in comparison to what came after. Our families really, really helped in stepping into the care after you were even sent home.
Yeah.
So I look and I think how many things we've gone through where we had a village. And I'm so thankful for that. There are no words to say how thankful I am for this gift of family and friends who were prayerful and very intentional about that.
We had I think someone set up a meal train for us, and we had meals delivered to the house. I remember, there's a cool video of us I think my dad took when I came home. The girls did not know that I came home. So I got discharged. I came home, and you were getting them from school. You knew I was going to be at the house waiting for them, and I got to surprise the girls when they came home, and that was a wonderful moment. And it was either that night or the next night. Cheryl Shields.
I remember this. This was beautiful. I was thinking the same thing.
Who still today works for Chick-fil-A with Mandy. They brought like party trays of food over, and they brought the Chick-fil-A cow
that was so
for the
cute.
girls.
Yeah.
And to this day, I still have one of those little Chick-fil-A cow, like miniature stuffed animal things. It's actually upstairs in my office on my bookshelf as a reminder of this season of life. Not that I need the reminder, but it's a good little token of that moment. And that's just one example of someone doing something that goes above and beyond to help us out. But they had the Chick-fil-A cow come to the house and like say hi to the girls, and they're old enough, like they know there's a person in there, but it was still cool, and it was very thoughtful. And it was giving.
I know the girls, in talking to the girls through all of this, they felt so special when people would bring us food. They felt so special. The Chick-fil-A thing was actually such a key thing for them. You guys are amazing. Honestly, truly, there are no actual words to share the gratitude that we have to this day.
Even my BNI chapter made a video. I think it's somewhere on Facebook still. They're like, hey, get better soon, Andy.
Yeah.
And that was like my last time actually going to that chapter for quite a while. Because this moment of being hospitalized and then coming home, that was another pivot point where like everything just immediately stopped.
Right.
Just like 9010 started with an immediate stop of the mortgage industry, there was an immediate stop to 9010 brand because I was unable to do anything else to fulfill anything for this company.
Yep.
Because what was immediately told to me after that was by being discharged, that didn't mean I was done. That just meant I was going home. That just meant my hospital care was finished. That did not mean my recovery was finished. My rest, I was basically, here's the quick summary, assigned to 1 month bed rest, which I did not do very well with.
He did not.
And then 3 months of physical therapy after the bed rest that I didn't do right.
Now, you say 3 months of physical therapy. Yes, you had to go to a clinic and whatever.
Yes.
But
I'm not saying that was only 3 months of work, because Andy over here did a lot more. I had to do a lot more.
It was, I think the hardest part was the emotional recovery that came from the massive humbling to closing down 9010 brand, because right before Christmas, literally, like, he was released from the hospital. So 12 days.
December,
I think you were admitted like the 23rd of November.
Right. I remember coming out of the hospital December 5th.
Or whatever it was, December 5th.
Yep.
And then there came the home recovery, and then it came to, hey, this business is shutting, and you're going to have to let the employees know that it's not opening its doors again.
I had to let, and it was 2 days after Christmas. I remember it being December 27th, so sorry for the quick correction. But it was 2 days after Christmas. I had to tell everybody, we're not going to be able to stay open in the new year. I have to shut this down.
Right, but
I knew we had privately known before that. I didn't tell them.
I remember
because I couldn't. Well,
you had been having conversations. I'm going to clarify some things again because you're still drugged up and I'm kind of running some things. I say kind of. I was running some things. But there were conversations that were being had prior to Christmas. And I remember that so clearly because my heart was so broken for the staff.
Oh, yeah.
Because we weren't even able to pay them.
Yeah.
Because of things that were held up on payment sides from other companies that
people that owed us money that we weren't collecting from, or they were slow paying us. That's a whole other angle to this.
So, and honestly, we can leave that off the table because it was a mess because it was a mess.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even need to be put on another podcast. It was just everything was falling apart all at the same time. But you came home and it was like, okay, I'm going to have to actually have those conversations of, guys, we can't pay you. Guys, this is what it's actually looking like. we're heading downhill. It doesn't look good.
I felt
And
terrible
then,
about all that.
Yeah. And then
'Cause-
officially after Christmas, it was, guess what? We're going to have to file bankruptcy, you know.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, oh, woe is me and woe is us. It's like, this sucked. It was hard. I guess my summary way of describing this now, so many years later, is that we experienced the public maturity and death of a dream.
Yeah.
And it went from this idea, and it had its like newborn years, and it quickly rose to like adolescence, and I'll say maturity, being like public, well-known, trusted, instant credibility because of big names, the ability to produce, even though it was like killing us on the backside, being able to like keep everything going in the front. It was behind the scenes. It was absolutely chaotic.
Yeah.
And then it dying. So
Very abruptly.
to me,
Yeah.
and it died after I had been saved.
Yeah.
So what happened is I get saved. My life is spared, if you will.
Yeah.
The company dies, and the company dies, and all of our employees who had been our friends too are without work. And it wasn't until I'm deep into counseling that I figure out that I'm in the stages of grief.
Right.
I was angry, and then I was in denial, and then I was probably blaming. What are the other steps? So all those things were happening until I get told, hey, you're actually going through the stages of grief. I'm like, yeah, no one died. He goes, no, your dream died.
Yeah.
Your company died. All this stuff that you had built up, watched succeed and flourish and, live a great life, and it all died. And that came later in the story, but that December of 2017, that was the death of 9010 brand. And I had to file bankruptcy. Thank you, Jason Turner, for helping me. I had to file bankruptcy. And this is the second time that I had to do that. We had done it after the collapse of 2008 and 9. That was the first time. And we talked about that in our other show. And then fast forward to 2017. It turned out to be in 2018 when the calendar turned. I had to file bankruptcy for a second time. And I'm going to physical therapy, and I'm going to counseling because
and you're on antidepressant
and I'm on medication. Yeah, it was a hot mess.
Yeah. So, in coming out of that, and again, I kind of feel like we can close out this season where everything was burnt to the ground, and it was such a, you could see the Lord's hand over all of it. Like, it wasn't for the sake of, I'm going to rip it up and tear you down and whatever. It was for the sake of, I'm taking away everything, every mindset, every heart set, every trauma, every, bad habit, whatever. Going back to one of our last podcasts where we were talking about how many times do you have to go around the mountain to see the cycles. And this was that second time around, a major mountain cycle. And God was going, are you done? Because we're going to break this. It needs to be broken. There's no health to it on any level. And you need to make sure that this is a second and done. And it doesn't take a third, which will, try to poke its head again. But this was such a clean cutting. I mean, he didn't lose his leg, thank God, but it was literally like an amputation.
You were close.
That happened in life that was even harder than the first time.
Oh yeah.
It was such an eye opener when I'm looking at you and we're talking about, okay, not recognizing that even probably 15 years, how long were we married at this time? We were married in 2003.
But it was 14 years in 2017.
Okay. So I didn't recognize throughout our entire marriage up until that point, you had been very, there were really high highs and really, really low lows. And I didn't recognize that you had been battling depression that entire time. This was just the lowest of the lows. And my eyes were starting to be opened, especially when you went on to the antidepressants. We had kind of characterized over the years, and that's why this one is such a long podcast right now, is because there were so many revelations that were coming out of the healing process where the Lord was being so delicate and so gentle where, one could say, really, because you just almost lost your life, and really you lost your house, you lost everything again. You went through the bankruptcy. Yes, those things happened, but that was my ask.
Okay, but
That
I want
was
to
by my
clarify.
ask.
I want to clarify why what you're saying is legitimately what it is.
Yeah.
Is the highs and the lows were able to be perceived as functions of the chaos that were happening, where we have these really big wins. And yeah, of course we should be excited. And oh my gosh, these absolute dire troubles that are life-threatening to the business or life-threatening to whatever, and
Right.
then the depth of that. And so my ups and downs were broadly able to be connected to what was happening versus that being an instability that I was just experiencing throughout those things being ups and downs too. So when I was put on medication, that it like evened me out. It took the highs from being so high, the lows from being so low, and it kind of evened me out. And there's a story about that too, where I eventually like, boom, kicked that.
Yeah.
Because of church and because of prayer and that being lifted and me going, yes, I don't need this anymore, and coming out of alignment from that. So I want to get to that, but I also want to make sure like I make a pit stop at physical therapy. I went to physical therapy for months and they were so instrumental in helping me, and they're just down the road. So that's what this whole pointing thing's for, is they were so instrumental in me getting my leg strength back, getting my health back, me like walking fine again, even walking to the point where at the end of physical therapy, in the last couple sessions, I rode my bike from the house all the way to physical therapy and back again. And so that was good. And at that same time, I was going to see counseling with Charlie.
I remember.
And Charlie was such a benefit to me. Charlie, I don't know if you're ever going to see this, but man, I owe so much gratitude to you listening to me, listening to Jenn when I was not describing things in a way that was helpful, and really giving me tools and guidance out of that chaos that had embodied not only the business, but the way I interacted inside of it, and then how I was acting and having that revealed because of the failure of it.
But going back to Charlie, okay, so it was Soul Care House, yeah?
Yeah.
Charlie Roos.
Yeah, Charlie Roos.
I'm going to do what I normally do, guys. You're just, sorry, it's me. I got to do the crisscross. Anyways, so I walked in. Andy had gone to counseling a couple times, probably at this point, before I went. Right?
Yeah, I had gone on my own a couple times.
Okay. So then I felt like I was supposed to go because Andy would come home and he'd be like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm working through. And I go, well, what are you talking to him about? Oh, this, that, and the other. And I go, but that's not actually what's happening. You're missing X, Y, Z. And he goes, well, I don't really experience that, or I don't really think on that, or whatever.
I don't see that that's part of the problem.
Yeah. And I said, oh, I'd like to go with you to this next one just so I can talk to Charlie and give him the actual realistic view of what's happening. And so I wanted to hit on this because we've had to go to counseling a few times in our marriage. And I honestly feel like if counseling is like taking the car to the mechanic for a tune-up, because, you know, you need somebody to intervene in things where the communication is off, and it's a beautiful thing because we've had so much clarity come. But this was one of the ones where we both went, and I sat with him and Charlie saying, okay, Andy's spoken on this, that, and the other. And I'm saying, wait a minute, you're leaving out ABC, and this contributes to this. And because of that, he's not actually able to take ownership of this, that, and then the other. That clarified so much for Charlie because he was only getting Andy's view. And then I was able to say, but wait a minute, this contributes. And then because of that, when Andy would go by himself, then Charlie had a fuller picture to work with and was able to actually hit on things that were part of the grief process and the healing the healing through the grieving process in a more full capacity.
And I just want to make sure I share that I was not intentionally withholding anything.
No,
it was no, not for you, but for everyone watching. Like,
right.
It wasn't that I was intentionally withholding something to self-preserve. It was that I didn't know that those things should have been part of the full idea that he needed to have as a toolkit to help me.
Right.
And this goes back to your helpmate part earlier, where it's like, hey, you see something and you're chiming in on it, not from a position of criticism, but from a position of, hey, you're not seeing this. And we call this like our blind spot, and people call it around. It's like, hey, if I got a blind spot, tell me about it, show me about it. What is it? And that's so important because, that can easily be taken the wrong way, and it can come from a place of criticism, or it can be, hey, I see this about you. You don't see it about you, but here's the instance. Here's another instance. Here's another instance. Here's another instance. That's actually something that exists with all these other things you are saying.
Right.
So that was super instrumental, because then Charlie was playing with a full deck.
Yeah.
He only had a partial deck of cards because I wasn't handing him the other ones because I didn't think that they were necessary.
Right.
But they absolutely were. And I'm really glad that you said that, because he was actually able to be better help to me.
Right.
And it wasn't even his fault that he wasn't the right help at the beginning. Well, that wasn't me. So,
well, that wasn't your fault. Again,
but you get what I'm saying. It's conjecture. I'm just saying, like, he was able to better help me because he knew all the information at that point.
Yeah, and when I look at the healing process, that was the launching pad, like being broken down so far and losing everything again. It was such a good launching pad into the entirety of 2018 and 19 was the renewal of the what we were as a couple, what we were as parents, what we were as
family,
what the Lord was calling us to. And it's taken us 7 years, 2018, right? What is that now? 7 years.
Yeah.
It's taken us 7 years, which that's completion, into that whole, now we're going through the physical breaking, the physical ripping away, into now a soul care process of 7 years where we're being forced to deal with all of these different rooted traumas, which if you think, when I look back through the entirety of our marriage up until that point, touching on the fact that I didn't realize until you were starting to go through the counseling and the antidepressants and whatever, that you legitimately had been battling depression the entire time. And that was tied to workaholism and people-pleasing and unworthiness and not having a connection, intimacy with the Father. And there's so much attached to that were revealed in that year, specifically 2018, that launched us into soul care and an actual understanding of what a healing launching pad looked like for me as your wife. Because at that point, and if you're married a long time, you have gone through your own versions of, oh my God, I'm so done. And okay, I still got some fight in me. And a lot of what happened in 2018 for me specifically was I turned 40 that year. And I remember the Lord met me at a worship concert. We were hosting a worship night at Torrey Pines campus. And I was I got to be on team. I was really privileged to be on team that night. A friend of ours, Johnny, actually, who had worked with you, he was on team with me. And this was the introduction into what the Lord actually opened up to me in 2017. He said, Jen, ask me about your spiritual giftings. And up until then, I had not really thought about it. Healing of hands, the prophetic, the intercessory side of things, and all things that now I love so deeply. Worship, like, what are the gifts of the Spirit and what do you function in? And I had not dabbled on any level with the prophetic at all. So I think it was April of 2018. Fast forward, you're going through the things, physical therapy's happening, counseling, whatever. And for me, prayer and worship was so life-giving that kept my head above water in the middle of everything you were drowning in. And I'm going, no, babes, we got this. Nope, God's got this. Nope, we're not doing this. And at the same time, where he's curled in corners sometimes, crying because he's just in it, the Lord taught me how to minister to Andy's heart while he's in the deep, deep depression, where the Lord told me one day, invite the girls into laying hands on Andy. And I brought them into the room, and they were at this point 8, 10, and 12, right?
Mm-hmm. And just so it's understood, she's not saying, oh, metaphorically in the corner crying. Like, no, legit,
he was
like,
in the corner crying.
Like, there were days where I couldn't get out of bed.
Right.
I was paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. My mind was racing ahead of me. I couldn't even, like, socialize, all the things that those of you who do know me know, like I can do this and I can talk to people and I'm okay being in front of people and having conversation and being lively and fun and upbeat.
Right.
I was the opposite of all of that for a deep, deep time.
Right.
And so it's not her metaphorically saying corner crying, like legit, uncontrollably crying, not even knowing what's going wrong, feeling completely out of control of my emotions and how to even function for a day. And this was unpredictable as well.
Right.
And so legitimately, that is the situation coming into Jenn being able to invite the girls in to pray and lay hands and also cover what was happening with Dad at the time.
So I'm learning and researching and praying and doing. Holy Spirit was just downloading and surrounding me with these teachings on how to actually utilize the gifts, the authority of Jesus, the healing part of what the Lord brings, and inviting the kids in and this was such a critical time for the kids in their spiritual walks, because what they were doing when they were coming around you, the Lord was teaching them that they had the same level of authority by faith that I had as an adult. And oh my goodness, the type of just joy that came out of the kids knowing that they were helping their dad in something, because we would have these times where the girls would pray over you and 15 minutes later he's able to function and he's able to talk and he's able to process and he
come out of the room and sit with everybody
and then be able to talk the girls through what was going on. And it was a beautiful thing at the same time as it was hard, because it invited them into a growth that they probably wouldn't have experienced otherwise.
And it was super weird to not be able to do the things that I had so easily done every single day of my life until that point.
Yeah.
And to feel like completely immobilized by your emotional and I'll say chemical state and physical state. It was so paralyzing. It was really weird. It was surreal, especially after having the experience of not being able to walk into being able to walk right away.
Yeah.
Then how come I'm emotionally not paralyzed down the line here a couple months from being discharged? Why am I emotionally paralyzed? And then having to feel, not like it was okay, but that's not the word I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of, I had to intentionally reject shame.
Yeah.
And intentionally reject
grief
and unworthiness for thinking that girls shouldn't even ever have to go to the situation where their dad can't keep his crap together. I felt terrible about that. And I had to work to not feel ashamed about that, because to me, it felt burdensome upon them.
Yeah.
Which maybe even now you can say it's burdensome for sure. But I was aware of that. I guess I'm bringing it up now to say that I was aware of that, and I was attempting to prevent myself from slipping into deep shame from that.
Yeah, and I think so. Hitting on that right there, we can come into agreement with grief. We can come into agreement with shame. We can come into agreement with, trauma happens, and we have a choice whether or not to let the Lord heal us through it, or we can come into agreement with those things, and that becomes a deeper downfall. And you live your life bound in those things, not ever getting out of them, because of what your mind agrees with. Take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. Like, if you are in those things, that is not of God. There are grief processes. Grief is a process. It's not a station. And that was one of those things that was such a huge launching pad into the healing. Again, going back to soul care and how to deal with those traumas. The girls got to witness all of the ups and downs of that healing process, which you could say, oh, that sucks that they had to go through that. But you know what? I'm actually thankful they got to witness it, because there are things that they can function in now in a more mature mindset and heart set, knowing that we are not battling flesh and blood. We are battling the principalities of the air. We are battling the demonic forces that are coming against the people and of God. And as we battle those things, that means we're going to contend with grief and shame and guilt and resentment and whatever. If we contend with them by the word, by the blood, watch those things break. And we did. We watched those things break, but it was through really hard work and really hard training and being surrounded by people. Going back to that worship night, I had not met a prophetic. I didn't realize my family functioned in the prophetic, but I had not met a prophetic person who had Chris Mengel, God bless you and your beautiful wife, for being obedient to the prompting of the Lord, saying, hey, I need you to go speak this word to this girl who's going to be on this stage. And I was in a worship session. It was beautiful. And I get off stage and this wonderful couple comes up to us and says, hey, God gave me a word for you. And it was in my 40th year. And the word he gave me was so beautiful. It was just part of that launching that the Lord was really bringing us into over the next 7 years of our life. That at the time, I had no idea it was going to take 7 years, but very much did and was necessary the entire time. I look at that and I had moments of, God, why is this taking so long? But now looking through the rearview mirror, I go, oh, you were being gentle. It wasn't an amputation into this season, because there were so many things that we had to deal with in this past 7 years that he literally, people say we're like an onion and you pull off one layer at a time. God knows how we are going to personally adjust to a pulling off of a layer. Some layers take a lot longer for us to release. And some layers are really quick and nope, you're good. I'm done. I don't want that anymore. Take it. But for me, especially when I was having to be the husband and the wife and the mother and the father, it was because you couldn't emotionally or physically, quite honestly,
spiritually
at the time. I was all of those positions for our house, which became very, very heavy. When you're going back to my yoke is easy, my burden is light. I definitely had our own yokes on, and the Lord was trying to get us through this season where I was able to pick it off, put it down, put it at his feet, and give him control and give him the things that were actually tools for me during the middle of the valley, but he didn't want me to continue wearing them. They were just kind of like that ace bandage in the middle of the field that you had to wrap up really quick. Well, I wore them for a really long time because that wasn't something that you were able to pick up. And because I wore them for a really long time, it became a part of me, which then took 7 years to undo. And now rebalance our marriage where you're the head and I am not. And you're the priest, provider, and the protector, and I am not. And me being able to step back into the helpmate position because I knew up until that point I couldn't trust you to actually allow me to be that. You never allowed me to be that, quite honestly. And every single time I would say, hey, the Lord told me this, Andy would go, well, I'm not hearing that, so I'm not going to do it. And that's a true statement. That's definitely a part of our entire marriage up until that point. And now, even over this past 7 years, we're having to go, oh, God, we did that wrong. What are we supposed to adjust on? And we've had some pretty big doozies in that 7 years up until recently where I'm sitting here going, dude, we're going around that cycle again up until Cruise Productions.
Because some things look the same, sound the same, feel the same. And then some turned out to be the same and some turned out not to be.
Right.
But I think that we've... I'll say at this point, successfully navigated those better than we would have earlier.
For sure. Yeah.
Because of that. And even in this iteration of us starting this show again, we had tried this already before, years ago.
Wasn't that
and
like 6 years ago we tried it or something crazy?
it was at home during shutdown is back when we started
Almost,
that.
okay, so
yeah.
5
So
years ago.
there's a couple of these like Andy and Jenn talk about stuff, but they were honestly not our full attempt at actually trying to reshare, create legacy, share, teach, and explain things as well as we're doing now. And also some of the things that we know now were not available to us at that time to share and evolve. What am I trying to say? To divulge?
Sure.
To tell? So in some areas, things can look the same and sound the same, but not be. And then some can look the same and sound the same and feel the same, and you need to heed the warning. And that's
you need to
something,
heed the warning.
And that's something that we now are definitely more vocal about earlier than at the point at which you already have toes at the edge and you're slipping.
Yeah.
Hey, watch out, they're ahead of you. Nope, there's no more ahead of you. You're already too far down. So that I think is maybe something that even still there's some refinement now even to do with that. Because also, admittedly, there's things that we can look at and say, but it's supporting us. And it's looks successful and it feels right, or there's no opposition to this. there's no like resistance happening, so it must be good.
Right.
But not all things are. And in the case of 9010 brand, definitely that had to come to a screeching halt. Because here's the thing that we didn't share, but I want everyone to hear. If that did not happen, I don't know what life would have looked like.
Right.
I honestly don't know how our life would have looked like as a marriage, how our life would have looked like as
if
parents.
we would have still had a marriage, quite honestly.
Yeah, no, it needed to stop. And at the time, I was so deep into it, I did not see all the reasons it needed to stop or admitted that they were as important as the stopping, or they were important enough to stop for, but like the stopping happened to me. I didn't cause the stopping. And now I sit in a position with you where I go, okay, hold on, we can stop this and prevent it from causing harm or being a detour and taking us off course, versus it being careening and being absolutely brought to a halt.
Well, and then going back to that, like where there are things that we still see in prayer. And honestly, if you were one of the biggest helpers I know to me, that the Lord will give you the red flags and the green flags. He will give you the yeses and the nos, and he will give you the this is where I'm going to ask you to exit. And if you can trust and bring yourself to understand that he provides always. He provides for the sparrows. He provides for the lilies of the field. Like, you matter so much more to him than they. If you can trust that he's that God who would give his only son to save you, he is going to, and he put this vision on your heart. He put this dream in your heart to actually bring it to full fruition. Then you can trust that if he guides you to it, he's going to provide you through it. And all of the things, even to Cruise Productions, this was another God prompt, is I need you guys to take this and tell your stories. And we have had quite a few arguments in this very around this very setting where it's, listen, I understand there is an element of helping others build their thing, but even in doing that, are you praying about your yeses and your nos? And some of those things have not been prayed on. In fact, a lot of things haven't. But they've provided enough to pay for the bills. But one of the things I've learned most over our time together is when you are doing something, and yeah, it's being provision for the family. You're eating and you're clothed and you have a roof over your head, and those are all beautiful things. But if you are in a place of striving and lack and poverty, and you don't have any rest, and you're treading water always, that's not of God. God is not a God who makes you strive. He is a God who will bring you even through the valleys. He never says we will be comfortable. He says you will be provided for and you will have peace and joy. But if you don't have peace and joy in the middle of what you're trying to build, he's not in it. What God gives you, it has oil and favor attached to it, even through the hard work. It doesn't mean we're not going to have long hours. It doesn't mean we're not going to till in the garden forever and ever and get a little sunburned. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have to get really sore.
It doesn't mean it's a life of ease.
No, but if you have striving, there's no favor and no oil on it, especially if you do not have peace through it. You almost died in the hospital. I had absolute peace that you were going to be just fine, because the Lord listened to my ask, and his yes to that prayer of, Lord, take everything from him that does not belong to him. He did it. He gave me that. The process of healing through that, I still had peace. Even through the physical therapy, even through the hard counseling, even through you crying in the middle of the corner, in the corner and the kids praying, I still had his peace. And when I had his peace, I knew I was in the favor of the Lord, and I knew his oil was on it. So I say all of that for all of the people that are sitting here going, well, why is it so hard? Well, it's hard because it's hard. Because tilling the soil is hard. Because going through the weather is hard. But just as Peter stepped out of the boat and God let him walk on water, the moment Peter took his eyes off of Jesus, he started to sink. He paid attention to the storm and the circumstances, not Jesus. And as long as we've had our eyes on Jesus, our ears open to Jesus, and our hearts receptive to Jesus, and we're faithful in those walkings, we were fine. We had peace. We had joy. The minute we take our eyes off of Jesus and we lose faith and we lose trust and we lose hope and we start functioning in doubt and unbelief, the peace goes, the joy goes. We have to fight for that to this day. Continuously, we've had those conversations. Is the joy of the Lord and the peace of the Lord on what we're doing? If it is not, we need to sit back with him and make sure that what we're doing is in line with him. Because otherwise, hospital seasons happen. Bankruptcies happen. I don't want to lose you. My fight will always be to make sure that what we're doing is God-centered and faith-filled. And that's where I end.
So there's a lot in this conversation, and there's more because this season of 90-10 brand ending and me being hospitalized, closing it, and then on the other end of going through the healing process created something new, which was Cruise Productions that came out of that. So we're going to talk about that on a different episode because that has its own evolution and its own origin story and its own kind of navigation through the shutdown and friends who hired us or me or both of us early on in things that now we do this. So we're going to talk about that in our next episode. But if something that Jen shared or I shared helped you, grab onto it. You know, if there's something that you're watching this and someone you know is going through a challenging time, a difficult time, a time where maybe they're not seeing something about themselves and they need to hear another story that might provide some inspiration and encouragement to like get through it and go through it and lean on God through it. Let this be something that can help them and aid them in that process. So
something I actually want to add to that, one of the things actually right before we came in to film this podcast, I was talking to Memo, our cousin, and he was commenting on the podcast we were talking about, how I said for the first couple of years of our marriage, I hated you. And he said, Jen, that really pissed me off. And he goes, how could anybody hate Andy? And I looked at him and I said, have you been married to Andy?
Here's a short list of 38 things.
No, but it wasn't that Andy's a bad guy. It wasn't that Andy,
I'm so imperfect.
We all are. But the reason I wanted to touch upon this is because of what it stirred for him.
Yeah.
So we've already gone through that. We've already talked about the whys and the ups and the downs. And I love my husband. Like, he's my best friend. There's so much gold in this man that we're going to leave that alone and I'm going to start crying again. There's so much goodness in him, but in those seasons of our walking through, nobody else walked through that with us to the depth that we were walking. And everybody sees the outward appearances of what we're walking in and what we're presenting to them, but they don't see what's behind closed doors. And they don't. They don't.
There was deep struggle. I mean,
really.
And I know we talked about that, and you shared some of that in the counseling section. But like, I need you to really understand. Like, Jen stood by my side when she didn't have to, and it probably would have been safer for her not to, because what I felt controlled by emotionally and physically and chemically, there were moments where I felt like completely outside of my own body doing things that like, why am I doing this? Like watching myself do something. And I'm doing this motion because I was like punching the mailbox one day when I was walking the dog. That was probably a story for earlier in this episode, but there was that day where I don't even remember what had happened. And it had to do with the closing of the company. and losing everything. And like I had to recover the goods that were stolen, and like the debit card had been lost, and people stole money out of our account. Like all sorts of crazy stuff happened. And I was out for a walk one night, and I just started punching the mailbox. Like that, there was just, that's like way outside of like my character and who I normally am. And those kinds of things no one else lived through, except I come home through the front door and you're like, what happened in your hands? I'm like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I don't know.
And that was
like, it was so wild.
That was one of many instances that happened that were so volatile.
I know. And unpredictable too.
And so as his wife, I've lived through things that were very scary and, truly, they were very scary. And I'm not going to say those things on this, not anybody else's business but ours, but there were things that I had to walk through with him that only I had to walk through with him. And because of that, people that see Andy on the outside and see me on the outside have zero understanding of the things that we've had to battle through together and sometimes by myself against him, you know.
Yeah. So
when Memo said, I can't understand, it pissed me off. I spent like an hour going, how could anybody hate Andy? And I had such a cool opportunity. And I will say this, like truly, it was a cool opportunity for me as Andy's wife to say, look, in this season of life, this and this and this and this and this was what I was living in.
Yeah.
And because of those things, I was forced to either leave you or, okay, Jesus, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
What do I do now that we have babies and they're now experiencing the things that I've been experiencing by myself? How do I walk through that with you? Straight up with you. And most days for a good 14, 15 years, I got through a lot of it on my knees because that's the only thing that pulled me through. So by the grace of God, we are now 22 years into marriage and we still have stupid because we're human.
Yeah, and now we have a whole new chapter of life upon us with our girls getting older and the evolution of all of this. And I keep saying that word, I don't know why I say that, but just the growth of this and the restarting of this, and then like them all getting older is like a really big deal to me, and figuring out what the second half of our life looks like. Yeah. Like it's all like real present. I'm like real aware of all, hyper aware, I would say, of all that stuff happening. But
what we're doing here, Memo's conversation with me, and I'm so thankful, Memo, thank you for actually having that conversation with me and being bold enough to say, hey, I don't understand. Can you explain to me?
Yeah.
How did you feel this way? That's not the man I experience ever. And it opened up such a good conversation of understanding for him to know this was actually my experience with Andy, and this is what we've gone through to heal, and this is how we've been able to pursue a different version of health into what we've gone through several different versions of what health even looks like in our marriage. But for him to be able to have that conversation, that's why we're doing this, is because we're not the only ones that have these types of experiences, and to be able to open up that dialogue with people who are walking through their own silent version behind closed doors of a version of what we've walked through and different. Whatever we say on here, it might be shocking because I know what we're talking about. Our parents are going to have feelings about, our siblings are going to have feelings about, our friends and family. They're going to go, oh, I didn't know that, or that's not the version of him I know, or the version of her I know.
Or why are you even saying this stuff? Why are you even sharing it?
Right.
And I want to say one of the things for me that's important is a lot of these conversations we're having now with all of you, we have had with people at our house. We have had when people come to our couch and they share vulnerably something that's going on, and they don't know yet that we've experienced that firsthand already, but then we can meet them in that place.
Right.
That's why that even though some of you listening to this might be your first time hearing some of these things, this is not everyone's first time hearing this story.
No.
There are people that we've talked to, met with, I'll say counseled with in seasons that sound like what we've told you about, or where we've walked through and they didn't know, and some that did, and we've been able to be a resource for that. And so where we can be a resource for you by doing this and sharing it in this format, that's one of the intentions here too, is the vulnerability on our side is not to air grievances. It's
Right.
not to air dirty laundry and be oversharing and, oh, that's too public and you should do. Look, we've had these conversations with
Yep.
people. These are not the first times we've had these conversations with others. It's just the first time we've shared it on this platform.
Yeah. And so it's been a gift. We've been able to witness other people's testimonies that have really aided our healing process. And truly, that is the only reason that we share these things, is because we understand that no matter what age you're at, there's always something that can be learned or clarified or revelation that can come from listening to other people who are in your situation. That blesses, I know we've been blessed a lot by different testimonies. There's so much power to the testimony. The word speaks on that. So we will share what we feel called to share. I know for me, we pray through all of the things that we're being called to share and know that the Lord is saying, no, it's time to release that. That's okay. And really, truly, we don't say anything that we haven't been released to share. So that's the biggest part I want people to understand, because everybody has their own opinion and you don't have to listen. If you don't like what we're saying, that's okay. Change the channel. But we do know that the Lord is asking us to share. And because of that, even if it is for one person, he leaves the 99 and goes after the one. And I know even with music, that is something that the Lord has placed on my heart. Whenever we create, it's not always for the masses. It could be for the one person that needed to hear that story for the sake of their own healing process or their own launching pad. So, that's really why we're doing this.
Yeah. So let's close this episode up. The next one will be about, because we already know this, it will be about the origin of Cruise Productions, sorry, out of the ashes of 9010 brand, and some key relationships that were by our side together, yours on your own, and then mine also on my own. And I'm excited about that. So thank you for doing this very long, extended, but thorough episode with me today and together. I love you very much.
I love you too.
Onward and upward.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you all for watching. If you feel inclined to like the video, great. If you feel inclined to share it, awesome. Otherwise, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye. See you later. Adios.
Okay.
Sayonara.
And we're done.